3, 2, 1.
Johnny.
Good to see you, Peyton.
Good to see you, man.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well.
Thanks for having me, man.
No, absolutely.
Much appreciated.
We've known each other probably since we were little boys. I can't remember exactly when we started.
Mutual friends, some soccer in there somewhere.
Soccer was my first memory. Matt Joseph?
Yeah, it rings a bell.
I think
know
Matt
the guy.
Joseph might have been
mutual acquaintance.
Yeah, mutual acquaintance. This could have been middle school or late elementary school, and we knew each other through high school and college. We went to different colleges and different high schools. You've always been an awesome dude to me, very stand up. And,
appreciate that.
And now here we are. Life goes quick, and now we're 30 years old, and you're doing your thing. And there's obviously been a lot of buzz around Kansas City about Spring Venture Group and the things that you guys have accomplished. And, you're very well known in the city and I'm sure regionally. And, I stumbled upon you about like a year ago. I was like, oh my goodness, look at Johnny. Look at what he's accomplished. And you're now an executive you're the youngest executive over there by quite a bit.
Yeah, a couple years.
And there's really I don't know many other business professionals your age that are at the position you are. So kudos to you. It's pretty awesome. But I wanted to dive in more about your journey and also on Spring Venture Group because I'd like to learn more about what you guys do. It sounds like you guys have become a technology company,
sure.
Business analytics or intelligence, data analytics. And so just starting from the beginning, what does Spring Venture Group do?
Yeah, no, thanks for the intro, by the way.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
You got it, man.
So SVG, we kind of dub ourselves as more of like a tech-enabled insurance distribution platform. It's a word salad, right? But what we're trying to do is use technology, apply technology to basically acquire customers for our different carriers. So, I don't, want to get on a tangent, but basically one of our bigger products is called Medicare supplement insurance, right? It's senior health insurance. It's not sexy. When you turn 65 years old, 80% of your expenses are covered by Medicare. The other 20% you're on the hook for, right? And so what's important to note is that multiple carriers offer, we call it Medigap insurance, right? Your mutuals, your Aetnas, your Gerbers. But the big caveat is that it's the exact same product and coverage, but it varies based on the carrier in terms of price. They all have their actuaries that are grilling, looking at numbers, and they've deduced that certain zip codes and certain genders may have more risk than others, right? And so what we're able to do as a broker, and a very simple broker model, is find consumers online that are looking for Medigap coverage, and we're able to pitch to them the cheapest product for them. It's the same coverage, the cheapest carrier, and then in a transactional form, give this customer to the carrier. So an example could be my mom could be turning 65 years old. She could look on Google for Medicare supplement insurance, and she could see our ad, right, that we put there because we know that we close leads in her area code better than others. She fills out her information, and we call her, and one of our world-class agents will quote her across 20 of our carriers and then pitch her the cheapest price because, again, it's the same product. So what we're saying is we'll sell a policy for Mutual, for example, and we'll go to Mutual and say, hey, Mutual, here's Mary Ann Hilgers, here's the policy in exchange for some revenue. Does that make sense at a high level?
Somewhat. That was a lot.
Sure, I'm coming at you.
No, it's good.
From the get-go.
So I'm going to try to break it down. So you guys hone in on Medicare,
senior health insurance,
people
that are above 65
and providing more options based on their situation.
Exactly right. Needs analysis. My mom, again, could call Gerber and ask for a price point, call a Mutual, call Aetna, or call a broker. We'll comparison shop you across all.
You siphon all those for her.
Correct.
To make her life easier instead of her trying to call all these different insurance
exactly right, baby.
folks to figure out which best model is.
Exactly right, man.
So how did this idea come to fruition and to create Spring Venture Group? Was that the idea from the get-go? I
believe so. So in 2008, Fred Colson, Tim Danker, Jeffrey Anderson kind of went out on a mission to make this whole process much easier. So they found a space where the product's really good. It's a really good product for the customer. It's just harder for the customer to find that right price point for them because, again, they're calling these carriers individually. No one was really doing that broker model comparison like we sought out to do. So we've partnered with all these really big carriers like Cigna and Aetna, and we're able to acquire leads via technology, via Google, via direct mail, via Facebook, to our sales center where our agents are doing a needs analysis and then providing the right information for the carrier and the customer. So it's kind of aligning the needs with the carrier's needs as well.
How much of say you have your mother, say she's 85 years old, and does she need to be submitting some sort of profile online, or are the leads provided to you guys internally, then you call your mother?
Sure. So a lot of what, and I'll get into kind of what I do, but on the data science side, we are involved in kind of the entire business funnel. So, we can start with how we acquire my mom, right? These people. We are spending millions of dollars a month on paid advertising on Facebook and Google, and we are putting our ads in people's living rooms where they think that, where we think they'll be interested in acquiring what we're selling. So we are in charge of all the lead gen up front. We're buying leads from aggregators, but we're also putting our ads across the entire web to generate demand for what we're selling.
Okay. And since, has that kind of technology where you're able to gather all this data and target the people that you want to target that are potential customers, was that in place in 2008, or was that something that was implemented later on?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I first started, kind of taking several steps back, I was a finance undergrad. You mentioned that. I started off in 2011 as a finance analyst.
So you're a finance grad.
Yeah.
That's now pretty much. I mean, you're a data analytics business intelligence executive. So it's a big shift.
Right. So the journey is, I started off, a bright-eyed 22-year-old at a KU working for a great guy in Scott Campbell, our VP of Finance, underneath his tutelage, doing some P&L maintenance, doing a lot of finance work. And I realized very quickly on, we were probably a 30-person shop, that there was just a massive information overload happening. There was data everywhere, patent everywhere. We weren't really leveraging it for anything. And so I started going to some meetings, listening to some marketing meetings, and figuring out that we had a massive amount of information that we could potentially leverage to do business better, right? And so I started doing some one-off projects, and I got really involved in what is known to be data science, right? I read about 15 books on the subject. I went back to school at Rockhurst and took some classes. I began developing in Python, and I started doing things that weren't really finance related. It was at that point in time our CEO, Chris Giuliani, kind of said, you know what? Whatever you're doing seems to be working. Do you want to potentially start your own team? This was 6-7 years ago. Fast forward to present day, I've got 20 people, data scientists, data engineers, data analysts, and we are building products with data. Think of Netflix, but on a much smaller scale, right? We are trying to leverage all this information coming into our sales floor to leverage it to acquire more customers at the right price point, to save existing customers that are maybe high flight risk to churn. And so we are leveraging the power of data now more than ever, basically.
How have you been able, so when it first started, you said that there's all this data and you wanted to capture it,
right,
and then bring value to the data.
Sure.
How did you capture the data?
Sure. So we were storing most of it into just a MySQL database.
Okay.
Data coming in, meaning...
And data could be...
Unstructured, structured, meaning back to my mom, Marianne Hilgers, for example, if she fills out her information in 2008, we would have had a record in our CRM with her information. We would have her date of birth, her first, her last name, her zip code, maybe the keyword that she searched on Google to find us. We were, storing all this transactional data, but we weren't really using it proactively, right? And so what I was seeing is we've got, 100,000 rows of data in our database of all these people that we had purchased as leads that were inquiring about what we're selling. How are we using that data to go back up the funnel to find more people that were like that, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. How do you think that there's going to be a big shift on what companies are allowed to keep data-wise? Maybe your mom doesn't want to be in their database anymore.
Sure.
I mean, do you think there's going to be more regulations around that moving forward?
Yeah, and it's already very strict now. I mean, data cannot leave our network. We've got audits coming in the door at least once a quarter, and so we can't send data outside of our network. So I think that based on what's happening now with everyone's a little hypersensitive about data now, it's only going to get worse. Yeah. So we're trying to shore that up, absolutely.
So you were around, the 30th employee over at
roughly,
SVG?
Correct.
And were you aware of what their 10-year goal was when you joined, and how does that look like to what it actually is today?
So I knew that when I first started that we had hypergrowth in mind, right? And what's changed a lot, is when I first started, we were, leveraging, let's start with, how are we acquiring customers? We were looking at more of maybe what our conversion rates were on Google or what our overall close rates were, meaning we closed 5 leads and we bought 100, it's a 5% close rate, right? We were, at the forefront of just trying to analyze what avenues were working really well. We might find that people that search Medicare insurance in Kansas on Monday nights close at 5%. Great. But what I saw for us and what the CEO saw for us is that our carrier relationships are different, meaning different carriers have different amounts of revenue they'll pay us per policy, right?
Okay.
That's just the way it is. And so looking past what a leads conversion rate is going to be, but more so what's the profitability going to be, is what I knew would be the end goal for us. And so if a lead's going to close at 3%, which may not sound very good, but it's going to go with maybe our highest LTV carrier, we can spend more on it. So it's analyzing up the funnel a lead for its expected profitability, not looking at conversion rates or anything else, looking at true LTV minus whatever marketing expense you have.
Have you created or helped create a proprietary business intelligence or data analytics software or Mythology?
Yeah, so
that's unique.
We use Python for all of our development stuff. So we use very popular packages.
What's Python? People don't know.
It's just an open source coding language. Basically, it's free. You can download it. It works really well with different APIs. What you can do, what people don't realize in data science, is that you can actually stand on the shoulders of giants. Meaning, you can download Python right now in about 5 minutes, and you can import algorithms, the same ones that Google uses. You don't know what you're doing, but you can import a library and you can start building models very quickly. That's the easy part. The hard part is knowing what you're building, what features you're actually putting into your model, and then when you have a prediction, what the hell you're doing with it. And so what I learned very quickly on is I needed to get down to basics of what these models are actually doing. So what we use is very sophisticated pipelines in Python where we're combining different algorithms together and building kind of voting ensemble classifiers. So it's the same ones that have been around for 20 years. Random forest model, logistic regression models. These are models that have been tried and true for a very, very long period of time. We're leveraging those in industry, but we're combining them together, right? So we might have a lead come in the door and we'll score it with maybe 7 different models and then have some sort of ensemble classifier that will actually give us our expected propensity to close, for example. So what I want to say is that we're leveraging existing algorithms that work very well for modern day business problems with some creative pipelining and daisy chaining kind of to go along with that.
But you've mixed and matched these algorithms to match and get the results that you guys specifically want to get.
Sure.
And from what I know about an algorithm simply as put is there's many different algorithms, and all an algorithm is just a way to sort information.
Sure.
So if you have M&Ms, a jar of all different kinds of M&Ms, you could sort them with, we'll put pairs of blues and yellows together here, and pairs of reds and greens here. And then if another way of sorting it is you could group just yellows here, just blues here, just reds here. Am I in the ballpark with that at all?
Yeah, it's that's one way. That's more about a clustering technique. I think one easy way that I always give an example of an algorithm, right? This is how it works. Basically, it's feeding in input in a way that can help it generalize. So picture an Excel document, Peyton, that I put together for you. And let's just say that I wanted to predict today if you were going to have a good day or not. That's what I wanted to predict. So you would ask me, hey, Johnny, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Will today be good for me? And I would say, well, I need a data set. So imagine the CSV. Each row is a day, right? Historical data. And when you label it, you're actually classifying whether it was a good day or not. So I'm having you go through the last, say, 2 months, right? 60 rows of data. And you've got the date, and you say, and I ask you questions like, column 1 would be a question, was there traffic that day? Yes or no? Yes. Great.
So you need the data.
Have to have it.
In order to create the probability.
It's a supervised model, meaning it needs supervision. And then what's important is that you're able to, one, build out these features, which, is not easy to do. And also you can label your data. I need to know if you had a good day or a bad day. So when you feed these models this information, it's able to generalize very quickly and say, it's just probabilities, right? Picture a decision tree. It knows that when Peyton is in traffic, half those days are good. That's not good enough for me. Well, when he's in traffic and he gets in a fight with his girlfriend on the way to work, then all of those days are terrible. And so it's able to generalize, right, very, very well. What's important to note is that it's not as easy as that. It's when you feed data to a model, if you feed that model too many data points, it's not actually going to do very well. What's important is that you feed it the right amount of data and you build the right features for the model that helps it generalize. You don't just throw data at the wall and see what sticks.
You don't bog it down.
No.
With 100 pieces of information,
won't do well.
You put the 10 best pieces of information in there.
Right.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Did you just pick this stuff up as you went? Did you have a mentor, a data analytics mentor? Because I know Scott, he's more on the finance side, isn't he?
Yeah, I read a book called Data Smart by John Foreman. He's the, I think, CAO at MailChimp. And I tell everyone that reaches out to me if they want to do data science, what to do, read that book. That book,
What's it called?
it's called Data Smart by John Foreman.
Okay.
This book was so right for me in my career because what it is I was, again, 23 years old. I was very, proficient in working with data sets, right? I knew about data. I knew how to sort data. I was in Excel, but I knew data, right?
Mm-hmm.
My whole life I'd been building spreadsheets. And this book, the way it starts is here are 10 chapters, right? Each chapter you're building a machine learning model in Excel. You're able to touch your data, each row. You're using Excel's solver, it's called, to build optimization problems. And the whole point of this book is that you're understanding how it works, right? Mm-hmm. If you're building a model in Excel, chances are you're having to do everything. You're having to create the calculations. You're having to do all of these things. And in doing that, it makes you start realizing what the heck is going on. Mm. And then in chapter 11, I believe, John says, whatever you've just done, you'll never do it again. You can do it in about 15 lines of code, go. And so the point is that you learn to kind of walk before you run. And then that last chapter, you realize, wow, I can do all of these models that I learned in Excel in like 15 lines of code. And that changed the way I thought about everything. It's a really, really good book.
So how does your data from this point on get stronger, more defined? Where do you go? I mean, because it sounds like you guys already have your target audience figured out.
Sure.
Where do you guys continue from here?
So the question would be, what signal is out there? So we call it, you have a model that's built, whatever the model's doing well at, you're getting signal and not noise. And so the question would be, can we generate any more signal from the noise that we already have?
Signal.
And the answer is that, what's helped us a lot is we've got some really creative people, some academics that were physics undergrads, some PhD students that are spending all their time building features, right? And so the signal that we have is, basically, can we create incremental features that will help our models generalize, right? And so that's where we're pouring a lot of our time and energy right now. And, it seems to be working very well. But again, these models need some handholding. If we can create a feature that's not explicit in the data set that works, our models can improve by 5 or 10%. So to give you an example, just to bore you a little more.
No, it's good.
One night I was in my office about 3 years ago, and I was trying to build a model that could predict if a lead was going to close or not, right? Just again,
if what was going to close?
A lead, right?
A lead.
So given information about somebody, given their date of birth and maybe their gender and their zip code, things that you can acquire from a form on Google, right? Things that you can tell Google that you want more or less of. I was trying to take those inputs and build some model that could predict the propensity for them to close, right? And I realized that the model was good but not great. I started playing around and I added a feature to the model that was simply, and it sounds ridiculous, it was the month of their birth date minus the month they were shopping for insurance. So imagine that my mom was born in December and she was shopping in December, right? Just riddle me this. If you take that 12 minus that 12, you get 0. That's that difference between her birth month and her shopping month. I found that when that number was 0, the odds of them closing were double. It didn't make any sense. So I built a model, I added it, did some cross-validation, the results were better and better, and I didn't understand why. And I went to sales and I said, hey, sales leaders, what's this mean to you, this feature? And what they realized very quickly on is that when what we're selling, individuals can get rate increases on their birth months. So you might get Medigap insurance when you're 65 years old, but when you're 68, you might get a letter in the mail saying your rates are going up. What was happening was people were getting rate increases on their birth month, therefore back online shopping and wanted to convert. Does that make sense? So building that feature to say, hey, is the birth month currently in this month? That was, and so no model could generalize and figure that out. Right?
You are what every business owner that's trying to keep up with this new tech, data analytics wave, you're exactly what they want. To be able to go figure out what you just said.
Tell our CEO that, will you?
Yeah. And then hey, if we focus on this, here's the problem. Well, not the problem, but here's how we continue to grow.
Sure.
And that's amazing that you figured that out just on your free time. I mean, you're nuts that you figured that out. Just like you went home and you were punching in that new stuff
it's
in
fun.
the code.
I mean, it's fun, and there's people out there that are a hell of a lot smarter than I am about it. But it's fun, and it's rewarding because it doesn't stop there. If you can predict something, what do you do with it? That's the fun part, right? And I always say, It's in John Foreman's book. My wife sees a commercial on IBM Watson. She goes, "Oh, IBM Watson, that's going to take your job in 5 years. Like, what else are you going to do when you lose your job to this automated machine?" And what John eloquently says is that, if IBM Watson was so smart, and I love IBM, why is their stock price down the last 5 years? Because it takes more than just a machine learning model. It takes business context, right? You can't just throw data at IBM Watson and have him solve your business problems. So my point is that it's fun because if you can build something to predict something, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Do you bid $90 on Google? Do you bid $25? What's the price point? And so there's just many things that you have to figure out in order to really use that in a business setting.
Wow. Are you guys applying what you've helped create to other businesses? Are you able to sell maybe what you've created, this customized algorithm, and apply it to other industries? Maybe some other business that's selling something else wants to use what you've created?
We've talked about it. We're just living in day to day, mark to market, week to week with a very agile, fluid business where we don't really have time to productize things. But I do know that what we're doing, I think, would help some businesses out, but we've not really put any effort towards packaging it up.
Yeah. I've talked to some recent college grads, marketing college grads, and I'm a strong believer that the universities and colleges really aren't preparing college grads at all for what's actually going on. And I only know of one university in the area that specializes in business intelligence and data analytics, and it's the Rockers Master's Program.
Great program.
I don't even know if they're doing an undergrad. I know they're doing the Master's Program.
Miles Gartland, and it's a great...
Yeah, and that's obviously not good enough, and this is such an important thing. This is help driving the next wave because they're saying what data is as valuable as gold or oil, whatever. And so I'm surprised it's not more in the forefront of what they're teaching in schools. But I was just talking to a marketing grad she just graduated last spring, and she has a marketing degree, and she's never heard of Tableau, she's never heard of Python, and she's like, I don't know, I just want to help create commercials or be a brand manager. And so if you're 20 years old or 22 years old, do you have to be you're obviously technical enough where you can write code, and not a lot of people can do that. But there are a lot of people in marketing that want to be able to be involved with data analytics and business intelligence, but maybe not as tech savvy as you are.
Sure.
Do you have any recommendations what they should be doing now in order to become more marketable when they graduate, when they get in the workforce?
Sure. That's a great question. So I am a finance major, right? And I'm leading an analytics team, right? I've got people that are underneath me that have PhDs, and I'm like, hold on a second. So to answer your question, anyone could do it, right? It's. I think there's so many things that are available to people online right now. It's literally insane. Everybody knows this, but you can find ebooks and products and test software online, and you could do a lot of things yourself. When I interview people, I look at what they've actually done. And so when you're developing, you've got called like a GitHub repo, kind of where you store all your code. What I care about is, I don't care what you've done now in business, right? But what do you care about? And I hired someone on our team now who's been a rock star, where he was coming from a marketing background, but he showed me his repo, and he had spent a bunch of time building machine learning models that could predict whether a baseball player would do well or not. Like, he was using it as a hobby. And so what I would say is, if you want to get into data science and maybe entry level, I would find something you're passionate about to apply it to, right? So he liked baseball, and so he started reading about how can you use some of these techniques once you've learned them to apply it. And so I think people now that are hiring are going to look for, what's your personal portfolio look like, your personal work, right? That to me is a massive bonus. But there are so many things that are out there in terms of free resources right now that I don't require an individual to have an undergrad computer science degree. I just care about what you've done. And if you've got it applied to a business setting, excellent, gravy.
That self-drive.
Right.
It's funny because that tool, Google, is there, but I just don't see as many people utilizing it because it's work.
Right.
They just want to get a job, or they don't want to actually put in the work. So that's interesting. Well, so what's next for Spring Venture Group? Obviously, you've been in the news recent.
Sure.
And you had some financial growth.
Yeah.
What's next for you guys?
So we are expanding our Medicare Advantage program. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but it's basically another product that we currently sell that we want to beef up our sales support to be able to facilitate. Basically, we want to offer the consumer who's in senior health more options, right? And so we're putting some resources towards that next year. But right now, I mean, we're really shoring up our technologies. We've been growing at a breakneck pace the last 5 years, and we will continue to do so, but we're going to take a beat in 2020 and make sure that we've got everything scaled up. But right now, it's it couldn't be happier with where we're at right now. We're in our busy season right now.
Yeah,
it's called open enrollment, and so we're coming off a record October, and people are working really hard. So it's cool to see.
That's awesome.
It's cool to see.
What about you personally? Any projects that you're wanting to get into? Anything you're excited about in terms of data or technology in the upcoming future?
Yeah, we'd love to be able to build kind of a self-enrolling tool for our consumers that are online shopping. Our sales are world-class, and they'll be so for the foreseeable future. We'd love to be able to put some of our technology on an ad on Google where you can fill out everything you need yourself. So when an agent takes a lead, again, my mom is an example. When my mom calls in, right, the agent has two pieces of technology. One is, what are all the rates available to my mom based on all the carriers that we have on our panel, right? So we have all the rates from cheapest to most expensive. On the other screen, they have a underwriting tool, which basically has a list of, you input the medications that she's taking and the milligrams and the dosage, and we can decline which carriers won't accept her. And so what you've got is, my mom calls in, and we can say the cheapest, carrier for you is carrier A, but it looks like that since you take medication ABC, you're not eligible. So what we can do is if we can blend these two pieces of technology together, we're giving, hopefully, the consumer a tool to fill it out themselves. And so that would be kind of cutting edge for us. I know some companies are heading in that direction, but building a more customer-friendly, self-enrolling tool for the consumer would be pretty cool for us and breakthrough.
Seems like that's what really makes you passionate, is how to constantly become more efficient.
Sure, absolutely.
And continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
This has been excellent. I learned a lot.
Have you?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say, or if people want to get in touch with you, or they want to learn more about Spring Venture Group, how should they go about doing that?
Yeah. If my story kind of touched you, first off, I'm flattered that it would. But secondly, if you want to reach out via LinkedIn, I'll never say no to a coffee or a lunch visit. And again, to reiterate, Data Smart by John Foreman, please read that book. You won't regret it. But thanks for having me, man. Awesome, I really appreciate you, Pete.
This was excellent.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks
for everything, man.
Dang, that was good.